Okay class, in this video we're going to go over OUs. First I'm going to explain what an OU is. So I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers, and I'm going to highlight my domain and I'm going to create a new OU. And I'm going to call this computer science just for a lack of a better name. And then that, I'm going to create another OU for staff, and then another one for faculty. Under staff, I could put another OU for clients, for computers. I could put one here for clients under faculty. And this would be the computer accounts for the faculty members, and this will be the computer accounts for the staff. And so what I would do is I could move users or create the users directly in that OU. And let's say user 1 and user 2 are faculty members. And these are containers just like my OU is a container, just like my domain is a container. So I could have objects stored in these containers. I could have objects stored in the domain. So if I had users under the faculty OU, I could apply a policy to that OU, then all the users in that OU would read it. Read it and possibly apply depending on the permission of the policy. Now, if you look at these icons are different than these ones. These ones are containers. This is an OU. The major difference between a container and an OU is on an OU you can apply a group policy. On a container you can't. But if I highlight this and try to say new container, it doesn't allow me to do it. In all theoretical purposes, you're not supposed to be creating containers. But there is a way to create a container using this utility by editing your Active Directory database raw. So I could create a new container this way. So I've created a new container called System Management. I go back to Active Directory Users and Computers and refresh. I'm going to close out and go back in. And there's that container I just created. When I go into Active Directory Group Policy Management, under Domains, under Contoso, I can see those group policy, I can see those OUs that I created, but I can't see any container. So the major difference between a container and an OU is you can apply policies to OUs, but you can't apply a policy to the container. So before I go further into configuring policies and delegating controls and the things that you could do to OUs, I want to talk about OU design. And I have this two design structures to kind of mimic the college. I have a Broward County domain, a Broward.com, it should be Broward.edu domain, and under that I have an OU called Central Campus, and under that I have an OU called English Department and Math Department. Then under each of those OUs I have staff and faculty. And for the North Campus I also have a English Department and a Math Department. I'm going to close this out and just go to this diagram because it's highlighting too much. And then I have a North Campus OU that's under the domain, an English Department, a Math Department, and under each of those OUs I have staff and faculty. So if I wanted to apply a policy to everyone on Central Campus, I would apply it here. If I wanted to apply a policy to the English departments, I would have to apply it here and here. Now this design is slightly different. Under my domain, I have an English department. Then under the English department, I have an English department on Central Campus. Sorry, this should have been North Campus. I messed up on this. This should be North Campus and North Campus. So I would have an English department on Central Campus, an English department on North Campus, a Math department on Central Campus, and a Math department on North Campus. Sorry, that's a typo. Then a faculty and staff under both. So both of these designs are correct and both of these designs are wrong. So which one would I use for our organization at Broward College? Well, it would depend. Do I have a campus provost, and under that campus provost, a dean for the English department, but he's only the dean for the English department of Central Campus, and I have a dean for the Math department on Central Campus. I have a different dean for the English department on North Campus, a different dean for the Math department on North Campus, and then I have a North Campus provost. Or under the domain, do I have an English department dean that rules over the staff and faculty for both Central and North Campus, and do I have a Math department dean that's in charge of the Math department on Central and North Campus? In our case, we have two deans for the English department, one on Central, one on North. So you're going to lay out your OU structure the way your org chart is for your organization. So if you have an administrative unit, then that unit should get their own OU. Then at that point, any departments under that administrative unit, like in our case, our provost, we have multiple deans for each department. Now those departments are ran completely independent than the English department and Math department on North Campus. There's no administrative hierarchy between this English department and this English department until you get at the top level of where our vice president and president reside. So you're going to design your OU layout the way your administrative structure is laid out. If you have a boss or a supervisor and that supervisor runs a department, then that most likely will get a OU. So you can apply a policy to that OU. You can also delegate control, and I'll go into that. So you want to lay out your OU the way your administrative structure is laid out. Don't try to force an OU structure on your organization that doesn't mimic what your organization is, how your organization is actually structured. It's very hard to go back and change an OU structure once you have it laid out. The way you lay it out is the way it's probably going to be for the rest of that organization. So it would be like changing the domain name. It's not really feasible after the fact. So you want to spend a lot of time and get a lot of feedback from a bunch of different departments before you start laying out OUs. It's kind of impossible to change it after the fact. So I just want to kind of give you a brief overview of how to design your OUs. The next thing we're going to do is I want to go and show you how to create a policy for an OU. So right now I have an English department OU as an example, and under the faculty OU I have 2 user accounts. So I'm going to go into group policy management. So I'm going to create a group policy called computer science required software. Click OK. I am also going to create, under the user container, a group called Computer Science Faculty. I'm going to add both these users to that group. This is something important. I cannot put a group in an OU, then apply a policy to that OU, and everyone in that group would get it. It doesn't work like that because a user can be part of multiple groups. So if I had a user in 2 groups, and I put one group in here and one group in here, and then I apply a policy to here, because the groups are in different OUs, you would not be able to define how the policies would get applied. So policies are never applied to groups. And there's really no reason that I can see to put a group in any other container other than a user container. I like to keep all my groups in this location. If you put users in an OU and you apply a policy, the path of the policy, OU, no, this would be sub-OU, OU, domain. It's real easy to define what policies would be applied to that user. But if I put a group in here and I apply a policy, it's not going to work, but a lot of people think it would work. But I want to show you why it won't work. If I put a policy here and that user was in 2 different groups, which policy would they get? This one, the one attached to this OU, or the one attached to this OU? They can't get both because you need a full path when a direct line all the way to the domain when you apply a policy. Group policies aren't applied independently. What happens is it goes by the path, starting with the closest group policy to the object is applied last. So it starts at the domain level, or actually at the local level. If there's a local policy on the computer, that's applied for that's examined first, then the site policies applied second, then the domain policies are applied third, then OU policies are applied fourth. So the policy closest to the object, in this case, if I had a policy here, that would be applied last. So they take all the policies together and merge them. If I set a setting here in a policy and I reset it here, it would overwrite the domain setting. So the policy closest to the object is most likely the one that's going to get applied last. So it takes all the group policies, merges them all together, and applies one policy to that object, whether it be a computer object or a user object. In this case, it's a user object. So never put a group in an OU and think that a policy is going to get applied to all the users in that group. It doesn't work that way. If you put users in an OU and you apply a policy to the OU, it will get applied to that user account. If you put a group in an OU and apply a policy to the OU, it does nothing. So I want to go back to group policy management. So I have this policy, computer science required software. And let's say I went in here and I added it. And there's software installation where I could say install software on all those computers that gets this policy. This would be a policy to install software for a particular user. So if I wanted every user to have Word, I would edit the policy and say install Word whenever that user signs in, if it's not already there. Or I could do it per computer. This computer will always have Word on it. So you can install software with a group policy. So whenever a user logs in, that software is available to that user. So I'm going to show you two ways to apply it. I could apply it at the domain level. Link an existing GPO to a domain. And then I could say, for the permissions, I'm going to remove authenticated users and add computer science faculty. So it's linked to the domain, so when any object in the domain boots up or logs in, they would read this policy. But only computer science faculty will apply it. But what you're doing is you're forcing all of the objects that sign in or boot up, computer objects if they'll boot up, user objects when they sign in, you're forcing them to read this policy. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to change the permission back to authenticated users. Authenticated users is a dynamic group. Whenever you sign in successfully, whether it's a computer account or a user account, you'll be dynamically added to that group. So anyone who successfully signs in, whether it's a user account or a computer account, will be a member of that group. So I'm back at the default settings. So instead of applying it at the domain and forcing all objects to read that policy, then only computer science faculty to apply it, I could link it to this OU, and at that point, the only people who will read this policy will be users that are inside of this OU, in this case, user 1 and 2. And who's going to read and apply it? Anyone who signs in. So my method is I like to put the policies on the OU and then just allow any authenticated users to read and apply that policy. And the only people that are going to read this policy will be any users in this OU. Then anyone who's going to apply it can be any authenticated users. But I don't need to worry about anyone else because if they're not in this OU, they won't read it. So if I have a user 3 that's in a different OU or in the default user container, that user account will never read this policy. So I don't care that I have the permission set to authenticated user. A lot of people screw up permissions. Here, I can't screw up permissions because I'm just going with the default permission. By putting the policy on the OU, you're forcing only those users to read it. And if you can read it, you'll be able to apply it as well. I think this is a more efficient way to do group policies, but I see a lot of people, and it's not necessarily wrong. I think you're just forcing more people to read the policy. And if you have hundreds of policies, that would be forcing every user account to read hundreds of different policies at the very beginning when they log in, when in fact they might be only applying 4 of them. So this way, the only people who read this policy are the people that it's going to affect. If you put it up here, everyone reads it, then you can filter out who applies it. It's a different philosophy. I prefer this method. This method takes a little more thought process. You can't have the users in any OU that you want. You have to make sure that you have a good OU structure and your users are in that OU. Okay, lastly, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to control an OU. So let's say I have a computer science OU and I want to make user 1 the administrator of this OU. I want user 1 to be able to create user accounts, reset passwords, edit user accounts, create new computer accounts, but I don't want to make user 1 an admin. I don't want to make them a domain admin, this would be overkill. So what I can do is, and you can do this for both OUs and containers, but I'm just doing it to an OU. So I'm going to delegate control. I'm going to grant U1 custom permissions. If you only wanted them to be able to deal with groups or create user accounts, you can delegate that. But I'm going to be generous. I'm not making any changes here. I'm going to give them full control. Finish. So I'm going to view, advanced features. If I right click this, go to properties, essentially I gave U1 full control. Guys, I don't know why, in certain scenarios, if you add permissions this method by adding the user account and doing full control, they don't have full control. I don't know why. Avoid using this method to add permissions. Always right click and delegate control. That's the right way to do it. This doesn't work right. I'm only showing you this just to show you what the delegated control wizard does. It adds this for you. Normally, Microsoft doesn't want you to see that security tab. So when you right click here without advanced features checked, you don't see the security tab. So it's actually easier just to do the delegate control. So now I'm going to show you the U1 user account. U1 is just a member of that group. U1 is a member of that group, and U1 is a member of that global group that we did when we were doing the group nesting. And no way is U1 an administrator at all. U1 isn't a local admin. U1 isn't a domain admin. So I'm going to go over to FS1. I'm going to sign in as U1. Maybe not. U1. I'm going to open up an MMC console. I'm going to add a snap-in for Active Directory users in computers. It's not here. So I got to sign out. Now, if I was on my Windows 10 box and I wanted to add that snap-in, I would go to Add Remove Features under the Control Panel, and I can do the same thing there. I can add what I'm about to do now. So I'm going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. I'm going to do it on DFS1. Now I want all of the tools to manage Active Directory installed on this machine, but I don't want to install Active Directory, just the tools to manage. And again, you can install these tools on Windows 10 as well. So I'm going to go to Remote Server Administration Tools, Role Tools, and I want to install all the Active Directory tools. Click Next. Reboot if needed. So I'm not installing the role, I'm just installing the tools to manage that role. I'm going to pause the video. Okay, it's done installing. Now, I might have breezed over this. I had to sign in as the domain admin or the local admin to install, because I did not give U1 permission to install anything on this server. U1 is just the administrator account of that OU. U1 is not the administrator account of this computer. I'm going to go back to DC1. If I put computers inside of this OU and I delegate a control of that OU to those computers, he's only in control of the computer accounts. He's not in control over the actual computer. So to make a user account an admin for that local computer and give them rights to install and things like that, you would have to right-click the Start menu, go into computer management, and then add that user to the local admin group. If you remember when we did WDS back in 1390, we did that with the joint domain user account. We set up a WDS and then we added the joint domain user account as a local administrator for the WDS server. So putting computer accounts in an OU doesn't make someone an admin. So if you put a computer account in the client's OU and then delegated control of this to U1, all you would be able to do would be able to reset the password for the computer account, but not actually manage that computer. So I'm going to the DFS. I'm signed in as U1. I'm going to open up an MMC console again. Now when I go to add the snap-ins, I now have all my Active Directory tools. I don't have Active Directory installed on this machine, just the tools to manage it. So when I expand it, look at I attached to DC1, but I could have attached to DC2, DC3, or DC4. It just chose this one because I bet you that's the domain controller I authenticated against. Once you have the snap-in, you could say save as. I could put it on my desktop as console 1. Then I can double click on it and it would have that snap-in in. I could further change it from author mode to user mode, limited access, single window. I'm going to click OK and save it again. And when I open it up, see, I can't make changes to it anymore. So you can create custom consoles for a user and prevent them from making changes to it. And if whatever task they should be allowed to do, you could add that. If they were part of the DHCP administrators group, I might add a snap-in to manage the DHCP server as well. So right now I can take a non-privileged user, grant them or delegate them control to an OU, then give them one of these consoles, and they can go in and they can create user accounts. Let's say they wanted to create a new user called user 7. I already have user 3 in another domain, U7. So they created that user account, no problem there. But if I try to do it here, I don't have a new button. If I did it here, I don't have a new button. If I go to the domain controller OU, again, I can't create anything new. If I go here and try to right click on the student user account and go to property, I don't have nothing I can do will make changes. See, I can't type in there at all. So I can only make changes to users in this OU. So I can make changes to any user in this OU, but not any other OU. So I've taken a non-privileged user account and I've essentially made them the domain admin for the computer science department. That user can create user accounts. That user can reset passwords. If I had created a group policy and I had given that user the group policy management snap into this console, he would be able to link policies. Excuse me, I had to cough. He would be able to link a policy to this OU, but he wouldn't be able to create new policies. So the domain admin would have to create the policy. User 1 would be allowed to link that policy to the domain. U1 can also create additional OUs if they wanted to. So again, U1 has full control over this OU, just like a domain admin would. User 1 can't do anything else to any other OU, any other group. So if I had did delegate control to my central campus OU, then essentially that tech would have no permissions to do anything else in Active Directory but manage user and computer accounts in any sub-OU inside the central campus OU. Okay, so guys, we did 3 things in this lesson. We talked about OU design. We talked about applying policies to OUs. And we also talked about delegating control of an OU to a non-privileged user account. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you.